Moshe Losice, a name that I'm familiar with all my life. We were not together a lot as life went on, but whatever time we spent together was time to be cherished because there was always a positive nature to Morris. I've never in all our lives heard him say anything bad about anyone else. Always know who he was, and by God, how learned this man was. He spent his whole life learning, but I think as important, he spent his whole life teaching.
Shortly after we moved into the Orthodox community, we had some carpet installed. We didn't know Moshe then. And the carpet started to roll up, and it was bothering us. It was irritating us, aggravating us. And so we called Moshe to come in and take a look. And he said, I'll get somebody in here. We'll get it taken care of. Everything will be fine. But he noticed that we were still aggravated. And he looked at us, and he smiled, and he said, it's a carpet. And ever since that time, we're talking over 15 years, whenever something little upsets or bothers us, and it's always something little, we'll be talking about it, getting hot under the collar, and all of a sudden we'll say, it's a carpet. And we'll think about Moshe, and we'll smile.
Even though he came from an old-fashioned lifestyle, he still was able to relate and to accept people for who they were. I find that to be very unique about him.
He was not only a good friend, he was someone who was kind of the backbone of this community. Everything that seemed to be needed or done in the community, he was the go-to guy. He was a role model for everybody here.
Now, one of Moshe's traits was his punctuality. He would always come on time, if not early to shul and wherever you needed to be. I, on the other hand, I'd continually come too late to shul, including Erev Shabbos, and I'd get there at the very last minute. And, instead of getting angry, he would make his point with humor. And he told me more than once that he admires me because I must be just like Hashem. Normal mortals need 18 minutes before Shabbos to stop working. But, of course, because I came to shul at the very last minute, I, just like Hashem, like God, must be aware of the exact minute that Shabbos begins. So, that's how he made his point to me. Even though he was a leader and a pillar of the community and a great Torah scholar, as we say, to boot, he was still very approachable, and he could relate to everyone, no matter who they were. If a guest came to shul who was a Torah scholar, Moshe would enjoy speaking words of Torah with him. And if he wasn't a Torah scholar, Moshe would still be able to relate to him and he engaged in conversation. It didn't matter.
When my husband became disabled, and he rests in peace, and he could no longer go to the shtibel, on the Yonteva, Rabbi Moshe Losice would take my children under his talus in the shtibel. He was of the nature that he was so caring that he could have enough room in his heart and in his spirit to put his talus over everyone to make sure they were taken care of.
He was a prince, the president par excellence, not only of the shtibel, but where everyone, he had the dignity of what a president should represent. He did. Maimonides Day School was a very important part of his life in every way, shape, and form.
Some of us have known him in the synagogue, and some of us have known him in the marketplace. Reb Moshe Eliezer influenced us in so many subtle ways as well. In regards to the Eliezer of the Bible, servant of Abraham, we are taught by Rabbi Acha that his common everyday speech was more significant than the formal words of Torah instruction throughout the rest of the Bible. Like Eliezer, we too who worked with Morris had the good fortune of learning the pleasant ways of a Torah life, how he conducted his daily affairs, how he ate, how he drank, how he dealt with all the problems that occur in everybody's life. We are all fortunate, without having studied volumes of text, who have had Morris as a personal example.
Morris was like a mentor to me for the last 30 years. Anytime I had an issue, whether it be in the store working or with personal issues, I would go to Morris and I knew that he would give me the right answer, whether I thought it was the right answer or not at the time. And it might have been difficult to hear, but I knew that he was really giving me a genuine opinion because he cared about me and he cared about all of the people that worked for him. We were all kind of like his extended family at Modern Carpet.
I worked here since I was 14 years old. Morris, he was more like a father figure to me. My father died when I was young, and he helped me grow up and show me what the real meaning of life was, what made things happen and made me happy. He kind of helped me mature as a man to meeting into my wife and doing all those good things.
I work at Modern Carpet with Morris over the past 40 years. Didn't believe in computers, did it by hand and did it well. He was gentle and definitely forgiving.
And despite the odds of losing his tradition and losing his heritage, he was able to retain those beautiful values and to use a motto from his carpet company, stain master. Now, carpets, they get all the spills and all the dirt and everybody steps all over them. Carpet that he sold was one that was a master over stains, and it wouldn't accept anything that fell upon it and stayed pure all the time. That was Moshe Losice, a beautiful person who inspired so many of us.
If I would call him ever with a business question, I never knew if I would get an answer that came from the Shaw installation manual or that would come from Pirkei Avot. But either way, he knew which answer I needed for the question that I had. He had a very positive influence on everyone who knew him through business, through personal life. He was charismatic, but not in a salesman way, but in more of a caring about the other person sort of way. And everybody knew that. It was authentic. It was real.
Moshe was the calming influence of everybody. Everybody had great ideas and tried to put them forward. Moshe was a very practical person. He said, well, at work, you really have to be careful. You don't want to bite off more than you can chew and things like that. And he was a very practical person. And was also very generous. It was not a cause in the area or probably nationally or even in Israel that Moshe wouldn't have contributed to. He was a major contributor, a whole bunch of causes. And his name was very rarely mentioned because he didn't like the publicity.
Time that he, his mother, my tante Yespa, his father, my uncle Neach, came to Albany in 1938. Moshe was such a beautiful little boy with a fur hat on that tied under his chin with the ear flaps, big smile, dimples. He had that smile his entire life. He felt like my brother that I never had. It's the joy of remembering that I wish to keep in my heart always.